listening to an audio article by the Common Constitution. Today's article is entitled, Time to Reintroduce the 10 Tenets of Conservatism. It's been a rather odd year, politically speaking. Although entirely predictable, the rise of the democratic socialists has taken many by surprise. And even more surprising to some is that they've not just won Democrat primaries, but dethroned some old dogs and forced the Democrat hierarchy to lurch even further left, lest they suffer the same fate. However, not too long ago, the Dems were singing a different tune. In reaction to a 2009 Newsweek cover entitled, quote, "We are all socialists now," unquote, Representative Carol Shea-Porter, Democrat of New Hampshire, at a town hall meeting in 2010 exclaimed that, quote, "I don't think anybody in this country believes in socialism. I don't know him, I don't hang out with him, but maybe you do," unquote. Now, we can't hardly say that anymore, can you, Carol? My, how things have changed in just 8 short years. But this article isn't really about Democrats. It's more about Republicans and what we can do to combat the onset of socialist lunacy. In the past, I and many other conservatives have insisted that we on the right must educate the electorate. This requires us to hold their attention long enough to do so. Sadly, that's getting increasingly difficult, so what's the alternative? Conservatism isn't really conducive to sound bites and slogans. However, there is one thing that encompasses conservatism without lengthy explanation. I call it the 10 Tenets of Conservatism. Each of the 10 tenets is but one line long and compresses our beliefs to easily digestible bites, politically, fiscally, and to some extent socially, and are as applicable today as when they were written over a century ago. The originator named these tenets the 10 cannots, and they've been attributed to Abraham Lincoln. These 10 cannots are simple in their brilliance, which makes them ideal for both dissemination and understanding. However, Lincoln didn't write them. They were authored in 1916 by Reverend William J.H. Boddicker, a Presbyterian clergyman and pamphlet writer. In 1942, the Committee for Constitutional Government, a lobby backed by the newspaper publisher Frank Gannett, distributed hundreds of thousands of copies of a leaflet with an authentic Lincoln quote on one side entitled Lincoln on Limitations. On the reverse was a list of Boddicker's maxims properly attributed in a footnote. Mistakenly, Boddicker's words came to be attributed to Lincoln. In 1949, an Ohio Congresswoman, Frances P. Bolton, read them as Lincoln's into the congressional record. Look magazine reprinted them with the suggestion that, quote, "It's about time for the country to remember," unquote. Attempting to correct the record, Representative Stephen M. Young inserted into the congressional record in 1950 an article from Harper's Bazaar written by a Lincoln scholar, Albert A. Woolman, listing most of the 10 cannots and other material falsely attributed to Lincoln. These are the 10 cannots, or 10 tenets of conservatism. 1. You cannot bring about prosperity by discouraging thrift. 2. You cannot help small men by tearing down big men. 3. You cannot strengthen the weak by weakening the strong. 4. You cannot lift the wage earner by pulling down the wage payer. 5. You cannot help the poor man by destroying the rich. 6. You cannot keep out of trouble by spending more than your income. 7. You cannot further the brotherhood of man by inciting class hatred. 8. You cannot establish security on borrowed money. 9. You cannot build character and courage by taking away men's initiative and independence. And 10. You cannot help men permanently by doing for them what they could and should do for themselves. Thank you for listening.